Worldwide, 30,000 pornos are streamed per second, and we Germans are at the forefront. When I upload a clip, the first reactions and the first likes come. And then it's like that. Then I get even hotter. On the other hand, there are also people who say that the internet is full of porn. That's a massive problem. Here we have racist, misogynistic, violence-inducing, incest, abuse, everything. I want to know today, is watching porn actually okay? Is watching porn okay? Fact is, a platform like Pornhub is clicked 42 billion times worldwide every year. To answer the question whether watching porn is okay, I think we should first find out who makes these videos. What are the production conditions? I'm going to meet two people who should know exactly that. Mia Julia Bruckner is known to many as a hit singer, especially with appearances on Mallorca. Before her career on stage, Mia Julia made porn movies, became a star in the industry. In the meantime, the 34-year-old does both, singing and shooting. We meet in a Frankfurt hotel. On the payment page, OnlyFans, she regularly uploads porn. That she likes to watch sex. She noticed years ago in the swinger club. Her husband, Peter Bruckner, manager and cameraman. She always wants to have sex, she says, especially when the camera is running. And then it starts. So, my darlings, I'm going to change now because we're here in Frankfurt with the HR Angel frag. That's the show. And I'm supposed to show what I'm doing with you today. I don't quite know yet. And just interviews and everything that goes with it. But what you don't know, I have my womanizer with me. I said, yes, I'm going to do a little something now, but I'm definitely going to do it myself. Let's see how the men react. Sure, if you say now, you always feel like it. That's something that stuck with me. I can't believe it at all, that you always feel like it. Yes, because women are often said, women almost never feel like it. The fact is that I don't have to get over it. I think I would at least as often as a man every day have sex. And I try to have him as often as a man. So if I know that you're standing here and I'm supposed to play around, that makes me feel different. I'm sorry for you, but that's the way it is. I think that's what makes us different fundamentally. Because I think for me, it would be the most disgusting idea if someone were to look at me like that. They wouldn't even touch me. Because how do I feel? No, not at all. But I have to say, we say everyone has their concept, their relationship model, and everyone should be happy with it. And as soon as everyone who is at the start is happy, that's good. I would stand out there. Then I can watch a little bit. And it's also corona conformist. There's a lot of oxygen in it, great. I'm very curious. But that's the miracle device. And so their fans will get to see it later. And suddenly I'm a participant in a real porn shoot. Should I turn to Philip? Or should I turn away? Should I really provoke him? I think it's better. Dressed but in the middle, strange, such a shoot. I think Mia is really nice and attractive, but this situation doesn't really appeal to me now. I wonder if she's really in the mood right now, what it looks like. I really feel like such a mean spanner. It's completely unreal, somehow strange. Mia is standing behind the disc and playing around. Super intimate, and has a facial expression as if she really likes it. Yes, we sit far enough apart. Can I take off the mask? I'll take it off. So, how are you? It's weird. I found it. On the one hand, I thought it was a mess. If you had children, at what age would you let them watch porn? Definitely before the age of 18. We are a big advocate that there should be a youth protection. We also get up regularly. I think it's the same with porn. I can watch everything on my cell phone at any age. That's not right. Are you over 18? At the same time, you are on a page where it is exactly like that? We are on a page, not at OnlyFans, but at Pornhub. Mia has been there before. The old films are there in the framework anyway. I think something will be done about it. That there will be an age verification at some point. It has to be. In today's time, when it's so present, when it's just a click away, that you can see such hard material, you have to talk about it at school. That you just say, I answer your questions and messages on Instagram. I say to myself, we men and women are often sorry in our young years. Even if they are 18 but still inexperienced, they click on Pornhub or somewhere else. And then they see really hard, dirty sex. where someone in our age says cool because you've already touched it, but at 18 it's definitely too intense. At the same time, you are on Pornhub. Of course, of course. But I also say consciously, my things are adult entertainment. Of course I can't control it. Just like in the club, when I play in the discotheque, I can't control everyone whether they have a forged ID or the cousins. You always have a residual risk. But if you ask me, I insist that the person is over 18. I found it super exciting with you so far. Thank you very much for these insights. I would say I'll move on a bit. I still have a few appointments. Is watching porn okay? I'll come back to you again. Gladly. Until then, let's take a look at what it does to young adults. Porn. The first time I saw porn was in the 6th grade. It was sent to the class group by the boys, as a joke. The class was talking about it. And then you asked yourself, what is it anyway? And then I wanted to see what it was like. Suddenly the porn was part of Anna's life. At 12, when sex wasn't really an issue for her yet, Anna wants to remain unrecognized. In reality, her name is different. I was very shocked because I wasn't informed. And then I didn't know what it was exactly. By now, the student is 15. She was curious about watching porn. Many did it just to be part of it. I don't think everyone says it's so cool that it's so cool for them. It's a bit of a group compulsion. If one says, I watched porn yesterday, it was so cool, then as a young person, with little self-confidence, you think, okay, I have to do it too. Anna is no exception. Like around 100 other children and teenagers, she often goes to the Arche after school to do homework, to hang out with friends. The leader of the Arche is sure. At the age of 12, almost everyone has seen porn here. He learns about it mainly through one or the other chat. I remember one situation where a boy said to a girl, "You have to put my penis in your mouth and then I'll fuck you." These are all things that we notice in everyday life. And of course, the children have some kind of access to pornography that is not intended for them. Getting to the porn is easy for children and teenagers. A search query, a mouse click, and the porn is running. The selection is gigantic. There is no real age control. Porn quickly becomes a part of everyday life. For example, in the 8th or 9th grade, when it comes to school trips, you no longer come back as a young woman. Up to the examples where it is said, one takes this girl and the other films at this point. Porn conveyed to young people a false image of sexuality, the Arche employees find. Sex as pure pleasure as a technical act. I remember one situation where they were sitting on the sofa and I didn't even look at it. But another teenager drew my attention to it and said, "Look, they're going to the toilet and want oral sex with each other." And you can feel, so to speak, they have a desire for each other and say, "Come on, let's try it." Or it will be a competition. And then they do it all of a sudden, and it has little to do with relationships, with love, with romance. Porn made sex more egocentric. Professor Rudolf Stark at the University of Gießen also sees this danger. He explores how regular porn consumption affects the human brain. It is definitely to be feared that if you start consuming pornography at an early age, you will have more and more difficulties getting into partner sexuality. It's always about compromising, informing each other about what you want. And not only that, most pornos are actually art projects, where it is clear that the actors look fantastic. The men last fantastically long during sex. And of course, that can create pressure. When we got into puberty, and the boys got their charms and said, "Oh yes, I watched the porn yesterday, and it had such a huge breast, or such a huge ass," and then you, as a girl, have to have that too. Do I need that to be recognized? And that put a lot of pressure on me. Anna doesn't watch porn anymore. She doesn't want to look at sex as a loveless act anymore. And she condemns the role models of porn. The woman does what the man wants, and the man determines, for example, the position or whatever. Or the man is in the stories, so to speak, the boss of the woman, or he completely humiliates her, or insults her, or beats her. And there's a woman who's being humiliated. I think sex should also have a basis of trust. I still have this image that there has to be something to do it. That can't just happen. Anna was able to talk to her mother and her 2 older sisters about the porn she had seen. reflect their impressions. But that's the exception, says Daniel Schroeder. Most children and teenagers remain alone with these images. I thought it was crazy what the kids said. So the question is porn okay? It's different when it comes to adolescence. I have an appointment with a woman who started a petition to protect children from porn. She did it because as a psychologist, she is confronted with the consequences of excessive porn consumption. Hello, Philip Engel. Hello, Tabea Freitag. You are advising adults. Does this show that these adults have been affected by adolescent porn consumption? Since 2005 to 2006, I had several women who were sexually abused after their cousin had consumed porn. That made me suspicious that something was being played on what they had seen in porn. Sometimes, even in good empathic families. I started to study how porn affects adolescents. There are a lot of studies that show that they mostly take over these scripts, films, and practices and think it's just sex. I can take it. That's why it often happens among children, that certain practices are seen as completely normal. Exactly. For example, an extreme increase in anal sex. Boys are often asked if it's okay to force girls into it. I experience in therapy that young women say that it is expected of them, whether it's painful or disgusting or humiliating. What Tabea Freitag tells me really makes me think. Is watching porn not okay? But is it possible to generalize what psychologists hear in their practice? When I was young, we also watched porn. We discovered it in our parents' bookshelf, or we climbed on the roof because the car cinema was visible. We watched Razmeyer films. It didn't really hurt us. Are there any cases where it hurts, but it's not a problem for young people? It depends on the age. People with pre-experience and sexual relations have a different reference value than someone with sexual education. On the other hand, porn is much tougher and more violent than magazines. It's no comparison to what it used to be. Because of the lockdown, primary school children are more likely to watch violent porn. You started a petition to regulate youth protection differently. Why is it allowed in Germany? Why is it possible for 6-year-olds to watch porn? It's not allowed. If we would pass our laws, it's not allowed for children under 18 who watch porn. I think it's the biggest abuse scandal in history. On the one hand, children are traumatized. On the other hand, a lot of the content is sex on teens, young teens, little tile girls. A lot of it is on minors. So there is abuse. And then, early porn consumption leads to sexual abuse on other children. You can't blame the children because they just implement and imitate what they see. On the other hand, we don't ban alcohol because there are people who can't deal with it. The funny thing is that we have a sharp knife in our heads. For example, racism, sexism, Me Too. No one would question that it's harmful. No one would question violent, racist content. And I often hear from professionals that they see it the same way as they do on Fridays. But you can't talk about teenagers or adults. You can't talk about children. That's still a problem. Because porn is mainstream, that people like it. Do you get stuck in a corner? It's crazy because pornography ruins the fun. It shows that it makes sexual dissatisfaction and that it decreases partner sexuality through pornography. Because no real partner can handle digital stimulants. Many men develop porn-induced impotence, erectile dysfunction, because it's only possible with porn but not with a real person, and the real partner usually loses interest in porn. I keep my fingers crossed for the petition to protect children, so that there are access restrictions. Can we do it with alcohol? Can we do it with drugs? We can do it with everything, but not with porn. Are porn okay? I'm a bit confused. On the one hand, Julia and her husband are the most natural for porn. On the other hand, the psychologist has already shown the dark sides. Sure, you don't want to be a sex addict, but I don't think porn is just okay. I have an appointment with a woman who has been selling porn for 25 years. She has a small shop in Frankfurt. Inside her, yes, we come. Exit on morn how focus, tapical, the name is cool. In her shop, she runs everything that women and couples should listen to. Demanding porn films also belonged to the range, until the internet took over the big porn film business. Hello? We were arranged. Yes, hello. I'm glad you're here. Philip. Ket tapped. Younga per tai. Sandra. Hi. As a woman who watches porn, what do you think of the image of women in such classic porn? Horrible. There are football teams, one after the other. They slide over girls who are so tiny. They often look like 13. A woman is basically an object. She's not a human. Not with her sexuality. She is not portrayed as she really feels sexuality. I think it's horrible.
I think pornography is good, but really good pornography is good.
How explicit does sex have to be? Explicit. Also for women, by the way. Women also like to look closely. They like to have close-ups. Logical. We also like birds. It's not like that, but it can't be so flat. It can't be like, Zach, hit, in, out, arrivederci, loud and done. That's how it is with all these films. When you hear it, without looking at the image, you immediately hear, everything is wrong. What's a good porn for you? I like stories. Not hours of babbling, but references where I can imagine, okay, sure, they met each other. They don't go into the box after 2 minutes, but they meet again. They like each other. Something like that. And I like a nice ambiance, above all. And the people have to be good, and they have to look natural. Would you go so far that, as with many things in life, food, clothes, that quality costs something? Because we always want everything for free. Exactly. That's why there are such bad porn. It doesn't cost much, such a production. You have cheap people, and you don't need anything else. The ambience doesn't matter, and the story, it doesn't exist, so to speak. And good porn, for example, Erica Lust, the DVDs cost $29.90. That's a lot. Even a few years ago, a lot of money. But people actually bought it, because it's such a shortage, and it has to cost money. We were interested. Are there any porn in Germany that claim to be produced under ethical conditions and even under feminist conditions? We found a company in Freiburg and were really curious what it would look like in practice. And is it good? Directors meeting for a new porn film. I thought, let's talk about the concept. It would be important to consider the requirements for the location. Kira produces porn. 4 years ago, she and her business partner Leon founded Feuerzeug Films, an unusual project for 2 students from Freiburg. The startup wants to stand out from the cliched Rhine-Raus film. I thought it was a great idea to say, hey, porn is different, but it's still a very small niche. And I thought, you need a lot more. And as it is, you sit together, drink a beer, talk a bit, and at some point we said, okay, let's make a project out of it. The concept is to produce fair, feminist porn, and thus offer an alternative to mainstream porn. Kira and Leon's films are supposed to be authentic. Explicit scenes can be improvised freely. The performers do what they spontaneously feel like doing. And something else is at the forefront: diversity. It starts with how we cast. We always cast without a picture because we don't want to subconsciously choose a certain look. For us, it's more important if the motivation is right, if the values are right, if everyone is up for the film. And then we set the goal to show a diversity of body images, of sexual practices, of sexual orientations, of genders. The ways of portraying porn on mainstream portals like Pornhub and company are not authentic or diverse. People of color, Asian or homosexual people are put into extra categories and thus put on the fetish. And yet, mainstream porn remains incredibly popular, also because it's free. We actually pay attention to everything we buy, whether it's the bio sweater or the bio products. Only with medium pornography, we don't pay attention to that. And we don't question, but of course it's important that pornography also has a price so that fair production conditions can be guaranteed. The films of Kira and Leon cost around €8 to ensure that the actors have fair contracts and protected reasonable sex practitioners. And even dialogues exist sometimes. Quite often, it feels strange for us to have a conversation about where are your limits, what do you like, are you allowed to do that? And it shouldn't feel strange at all.